Hello, everyone. My name is Phil, and I'm a doctor who likes to play and talk about board games. If you've watched my latest top 10 board games of all time video, you'll know that Brass Birmingham is on that list. It's in the top three, in fact. I would include Lancashire in that spot too, because I just really love the Brass system. So, knowing that Brass Pittsburgh is set to kickstart and release this year, I'm very keen on learning more about this new version of Brass and trying it. The major question I have is, though, despite the hype, is this game worth purchasing or backing if I already have a copy of Brass? Of which I do. I have Brass Birmingham at home. I'll leave you my thoughts, which are, of course, not sponsored by anyone. I have not played Brass Pittsburgh. I've only seen what other folks have said about it, both on the Gamefound page with all the updates from the designers and others, and of course the other content creators who have made videos. And so, based off of the concepts that are introduced from those sources, I want to help myself as well as potentially help you decide if it's worth backing at this time. And if by the time this recording comes out, there's more information that is available by the time the Kickstarter campaign launches, then I'll insert some more thoughts here. But anyway, let's get into what Pittsburgh offers mechanically. There are great videos out there that talk about this, but to summarize some of the changes that Pittsburgh offers the Brass system, aside from a new setting and map, of course, with the region of the eastern United States being the focus here, you have first heavy locomotives, which is a new type of train that you place on the rail routes that stay on the board over the two rounds or the two phases of the game, but they're more costly to build. You have network line bonuses, so when you place routes on certain lines, that grants like a one-time bonus to help facilitate and encourage building on certain areas, and it helps you, focus on network scoring as well. I think there are some changes to how that works in addition to the bonuses that you get. Next big thing is decentralized markets. And so instead of one market that you're trying to get coal and iron from and manipulate through the industries that you build, they are spread throughout the board, encouraging you to build routes and build buildings close to these markets to take advantage from. On the board, you have pipelines as well. And so connecting pipelines to cities and certain regions allow for oil, which is a new resource very akin to beer in Brass Birmingham, to be used in order to build out these industries, etc. You have a new resource in whiskey, which can be used in conjunction with a card on your turn to be a wild location or industry. It's essentially the replacement of the scout action in Brass Birmingham, allowing for more flexibility in where and what you can build. You have the upgrade mechanism, which replaces overbuilding. You have new resources, like in addition to oil, you have steel and coke, which are advanced upgraded versions of iron and coal. You have premium goods. It's kind of like a star system of the value of goods and industries that you build upon throughout the game to allow the pursuit for bigger prizes and points. You have the Vanderbilt delivery. So if you're not connected to a market, you can pay a higher price for a certain good that you're missing to progress your game. So you're not like shut out from markets, and if you don't have any opportunity, at least you have this in your back pocket to help out. You have crown jewel buildings. So at the end of your industry tracks on your board that you can build towards, you have some kind of, one-time, big time bonuses that are kind of different from one another at the end of these tracks. It kind of reminds me of like the shipyard track in Lancashire a little bit, but at least you have a lot of variability in which tracks you choose to pursue and which industries to try to pursue throughout the game. And then finally, you have the two-player map. On the reverse side of the board, you have a smaller, tighter experience that is more fitting for the two-player experience. So initially, I thought this would be a relatively short list of the changes, but as I started to list them, it turns out there are quite a few changes or alterations made, or additions even. And reading through the designer diary posted on Gamefound, I see reasons for why they made these changes. Some of them were to reflect the game differently when adapting it to the new theme and setting. Other changes were to quote unquote fix the issues that new players to the older Brass games had questions to that they were confused with when they're learning Brass and playing it for the first time. The sense I get from learning about these new changes and additions, it still feels like this game is going to be a heavier experience compared to other Brass games. Brass itself is a somewhat heavy game, but I think this is going to be a little bit heavier. I feel like if you look at Lancashire, which is in my opinion the most streamlined Brass experience, Birmingham introduced new mechanisms and made it a little bit more flexible of a game and variable of a game, but it introduced more rules that potentially could have been a little bit more confusing and put more of a front load to the rules, intuition at the beginning of the game. Pittsburgh looks like it does clean up a few of these mechanisms and questions and confusing rules from Brass Birmingham, but it also introduces a whole lot more nuance to the system and therefore might be the most complex game when it comes to rules in the Brass series so far, in my opinion. It's like they sought out to change some of the holdups from previous Brass experiences, rules that might have been confusing, and then added some more rules on top of the fixes that they made to make it make sense for the setting that they have. And here we have Pittsburgh. One major comment from the designers, though, is that they wanted to make a distinct Brass game that had strategic depth, perhaps even more depth than previous iterations so far. Now, this is one way to introduce strategy for sure, by introducing more complexity and nuance to the game. Other ways that could have been done was to perhaps create new maps, like for Brass, and essentially, like hypothetically, you keep all the rules the same from Brass Birmingham, and you create this new Pittsburgh map, and you keep pretty much everything the same, but maybe you make one or two additions, like having the one-time bonuses on routes and leaving it at that, changing beer to beer to oil, but that's it, right? Like you don't have any of these other mechanisms that are introduced. So that's another way to do it, to keep the rules complexity, the rules teach, on the lighter side, but still have a varied experience. Now, would that sell? Would that be something that most people would be interested in versus a whole nother standalone game with with a significantly different rule set, while keeping the same system intact, of course, but just introducing a lot more nuance to the game? Maybe more people would rather have that, and that would make it feel more distinct and worthy of your collection than just having, the slightest tweaks and a new map essentially to give you, Brass Pittsburgh. So maybe some of those decisions came into account when they designed and play tested this game. But in any case, I think this new Brass experience is definitely going to be fun. It's based on Brass. And so if you do enjoy Brass, chances are you're going to like this game. The designers have play tested this game reportedly for hundreds of hours as well. And according to a Gamefound post, they have been actively testing this game on Board Game Arena. So it's going to be a very finely tuned game, and perhaps something that we could all at least try digitally at some point as well. So the questions I ask myself considering this situation are, is this going to be as fun or more fun than Brass Birmingham? I think it's going to be different enough from Brass Birmingham, but is it more fun? And is it going to be different enough to warrant a spot in my physical collection, which is limited? I think it's definitely going to be, interesting. Maybe the, additional complexity together in conjunction with the rules fixes for some of the more confusing aspects maybe makes a very, strategically deep Brass experience. Maybe it's going to be deeper than what you get with Birmingham and Lancashire. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But I definitely think it's going to be different enough that it's perhaps worth having. Is if you don't have Brass Birmingham in your collection, you could definitely consider Pittsburgh, if you're up to learning the complexity of the system, to be that one game that you have. For me personally, I think that it's interesting. Since I do have the game, a Brass game in my collection personally, and knowing that Brass Birmingham, Brass Lancashire, and perhaps even Brass Pittsburgh would be available at some point digitally on Board Game Arena, which is great because you get to try out games at least once or many times actually. it is, I guess, risky if people have something that's more available online to play with, especially if you don't have a lot of people to play with physically. Then this is the way that you play Brass, right? And you wouldn't seek out a physical copy because you wouldn't be able to either find players to play it with, or it doesn't have a solo mode. So that's another hiccup that I have with this, is that there's no official solo mode that is announced for Pittsburgh. Probably won't, because that's not in the spirit of Brass, and that's totally fine. And in addition to that, like for me personally, with the board gaming friends that I have that I play with, we tend to play a variety of games, right? We're not playing like the same game over and over again. We tend to bounce back and forth among different games. And so the likelihood of playing like a Brass game is limited, maybe once, maybe twice a year if we're lucky. But then what Brass game do we play? Do we play Lancashire? Do we play Birmingham? Do we play Pittsburgh? I'm sure that the novelty of Pittsburgh would want to have it be played at least once, but then coming back to it, what would be easier to recall rules wise? I think perhaps Birmingham or Lancashire would be, rather than Pittsburgh, because of all the additions that are made. And so for me, those are the holdups that I have personally about backing this game. But like I mentioned before, if there are additional things that I think the game would come with, like some of the add-ons, like the iron coins, seem pretty interesting, and so there is that aspect of the campaign as well that I don't know all the details yet, because I'm making this recording before the Kickstarter launches, and so I'll have any additional changes I'll insert to this video, but I do take that into consideration. So I'm kind of still on the fence. My conclusion, I'm still on the fence of whether to purchase this game or not, to back it back it right now or not. Despite my hype and love for the game and my interest in playing this game. If more information comes out soon about a digital version to try it out on, that might be sufficient for me to experience this game, and then I can wait for retail if I really want to. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I wish I had a more definitive answer at this point, but maybe I will insert my decision after the Kickstart campaign launches and we get more information. So hopefully that was helpful. Maybe some of my thoughts make sense. Hopefully they do, and help you in your decisions whether to back the project or to wait and play it at a later date, because it's a popular enough system that I'm pretty sure that it would get a retail treatment at some point, like the other two Brass games. And so we'll eventually get our chance, but not to persuade or dissuade from the hype that comes around this game and the Kickstarter campaign. I just wanted to be honest with my thoughts at this time, and hopefully help you out as well. So if you have any thoughts for me, let me know in the comments below if I missed anything, or if you have additional insights into what this campaign is all about and could persuade or dissuade me as well. Just let me know. Thank you for checking out this video. Hope to catch you on the next one, and take care.